Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be theory crafting some remixes for the Choose Your Legends units. So it's kind of ridiculous that second place units do not get preference skills, or at least they didn't until last year. Especially because so many units nowadays, like Nifl or Moosebell or Fallen Elgard or Fallen Dimitri, all get preference skills and they are just normal units in the normal summoning pool. So today we're going to be theory crafting some preference skills for those second place units. We will also be doing remixes for Brave Ike and Brave Lyn because their preference skills have begun to fall off a bit and they definitely could use a bit of help. Our goal for these remixes is to make each unit have a unique niche so that they have something they can do either better than everybody else or something they can do that other units cannot. Some of these skills may seem overpowered, but that is because I need them to stand the test of time, and there's going to be a lot of power creep coming, I am sure. And also, these are some older units, so they definitely need some extra firepower so they can carve part of the meta out for themselves. Okay, let's start off with Brave Ike, the winner of the male side of Choose Your Legends 1. And he came with Bearic's Blessing, and essentially what it did is it neutralized cavalry and flying units' bonuses when they had fought into Brave Ike. This skill has been trash essentially since it came out. No one ever really used it when he came out. People would run things more like Quick Riposte or something else. So when it came to the upgrading Bearic's Blessing to Bearic's Blessing 2, I wanted to retain some of the idea of the base skill, but I also wanted to give Brave Ike some things to help fix some of his major problems. So over time, Brave Ike has had to switch more to a speed build. Originally, I liked the slower Ike because it would let him get hit twice and then retaliate with an ether, which meant he was getting healing and also usually killing the enemy, right? But nowadays, you kind of have to run like null follow-up. So for Bearic's Blessing 2, we're going to keep the nullification of bonuses on foes, but instead of just being cavalry and flying, it's going to be all units. He's going to be able to get that Distant Defense 4 bonus where he just nullifies all bonuses coming towards him. He's also going to be able to neutralize his own penalties in combat. And also, he's going to get NFU. So these are three very powerful effects, obviously, but I feel like these are three things that Brave Ike really needs to be able to stand out and continue working in the meta. It's going to be able to let Ike force fair fights, essentially, because it's going to make sure the enemy doesn't have any buffs and he doesn't have any debuffs. So it's going to keep his stats exactly where they're supposed to be. And I think this is big because Brave Ike and the CYL 1 units don't have stats on their weapons, on their refines, like other CYL units have now since then. And that is probably just because, it was an earlier refine. That's not to say that the refines aren't powerful, but you definitely need to make sure that these units have some staying power. So while I feel like these are three very powerful effects, I think it's justified, and it will definitely help Brave Ike continue being a powerhouse in the meta. Next, we have our winner for the female side of Choose Your Legends 1, Brave Lyn. So Brave Lyn has the Case Blessing, and this is actually a very solid preference skill. It was extremely powerful when it was released, and over time it has gotten weaker, but it is still quite good. Essentially what it does, if the foe uses Sword, Lance, or Axe, the foe cannot counterattack. And while this is good, it could use a bit more power, especially due to the refine that Brave Lyn got at the time. Her Mulligar effect is just absolutely terrible, to be honest. It checks visible speed stat, and if Lyn has a higher visible speed stat, then she's able to get +4 to all stats. And that's pretty much the entire refine. Very not good, to be honest. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the Case Blessing a little bit better to help her out. Over time, Brave Lyn has stopped using her preference weapon and instead really been using Fire Sweep Bow. So what we're going to do for Sakei's Blessing 2 is make it so that it inflicts speed and defense -5 on foe during combat, and foe cannot counterattack. So it doesn't matter what type of weapon you're using, you are not going to be able to counterattack. And I think this kind of really solidifies her niche while also allowing her to use different weapons. So she doesn't need to use Fire Sweep Bow, she can use a better inheritable bow or Mulligar if you want to, and it's going to allow her to fulfill that same role but be more powerful. Also, that -5 to speed and defense is going to help her hit harder and allow her to actually kill some enemies because power creep is definitely a real thing and her stats are definitely outdated. Okay, we are now stepping into completely new territory, and we are going to design the preference skill for the second place winner of Choose Your Legends 1, Brave Roy. So Brave Roy is in an interesting situation. His dad essentially stole his niche and stole his weapon, and so he is just struggling to try to find some place in the meta. Not only that, there are a ton of powerful red swords out there right now, like Legendary Sigurd, like Legendary Erica, maybe even Rid to an extent. So to give Brave Roy some kind of unique niche, I decided to make a skill that allows him to spam specials. Now I understand that his original niche was like a Gale Force unit, but he doesn't have cooldown reduction in his weapon, so he's really not too suited for it, and you really don't want to give up your seal slot for quick impulse. So the preference skill I designed for him is called the Unifier of Alib. It's a B skill, it has Canto 2, and if unit initiates combat, neutralizes effects that prevent units follow-up attacks. So half of NFU, Also, neutralizes units' penalties that inflict special cooldown charge -X on unit during combat, and if special triggers, deals +10 damage and neutralizes the reduces damage by X% effects from non-special skills. So what this does essentially is it allows Brave Roy to be a special spammer. In his Refine, he essentially has an impact skill and special fighter. So he's getting 2 charge every time he hits, and when they hit him, he gets 2 as well. So he can get those big, giant hits off, and that's amazing, right? So we just need to make sure that he's able to do that and to kind of empower that. So we give him half of NFU, and what that does is make sure that he gets the double off. Then we also give him anti-guard so that people cannot stop him from getting his specials, which is very important. And then lastly, we give him that extra power, like that Woe Dao effect on his special, and also make it so that it has the like Dead Eye effect, where it ignores damage reduction, allowing Roy to really get in there and just destroy some people. The Canto 2 allows him to retreat, which is very important when you're going to have a unit like this, who's really like an all-in destroyer. You need to be able to go in, hit, and then come back out. I think this skill will allow Brave Roy to have a really unique niche as a red sword cav, kind of similar to Brave Erica, not quite as powerful obviously, but most importantly it gives Brave Roy that unique role in the meta where he can be a tank buster, and it differentiates him from every other cav sword in the meta. Let's move on to Brave Lucina, and Brave Lucina has been a very powerful support since she's gotten a Refine, but over time some people have started to steal a bit of her niche, such as like New Year's Valoria or Duo Hilda. And so what we need to do is kind of give her some more power back. And so I think the best way to do that is to give her a unique preference skill in her C slot, which I like to call the Brand of the Exalt. The Brand of the Exalt gives, if unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants +3 attack, speed, defense, and resistance during combat, and neutralizes effects that inflict special cooldown charge -X on unit during combat. Also, allies within 2 spaces get +3 attack, +3 speed, +3 defense, +3 resistance during combat, and neutralize effects that inflict special cooldown charge -X on unit during combat. So essentially this is like a joint drive anti-guard with Omni Drive on it, right? So you're getting all the stats +3 and also anti-guard. So what this does is solidifies her ability as a support to be able to not only give that special charge through the steady breath drive she has, but also to protect it from guard effects, which I think is very important. It's not a full anti-special charge effect like Legendary Bylus, Legendary Female Bylus, because it doesn't stop the enemy from getting special charge, like from Heavy Blade or Flashing Blade or anything like that, but it does protect your unit you are supporting, which is what is important. Also, it gives a lot more stats, so it's doubling down on her ability to give out a lot of stats and to help out that Omni Tank or whatever unit you are supporting. Lastly, it lets her have those abilities as well, so it lets her kind of get in there and do a bit of combat, even though that's really not her strong point. I think it's important to just let her to have a few more stats, so that way she's not completely just a support, because if you do heavily invest into Brave Lucina, she can put in some work, and the only thing that's really holding her back are her stats at this point. So by giving her +3 to all BST essentially, it's going to allow her to close that gap a bit, and essentially it's going to give her those stats she needs that she didn't get on her Weapon Refine, but in her preference skill instead. Okay, let's move on to the CYL 2 second place winners, Brave Ephraim and Brave Veronica. So let's start with Brave Ephraim. So Brave Ephraim is in the unique position where he does have a pretty powerful weapon, but he does not have anything else unique to him, and there are so many powerful axe armors in the game right now that he really needs something to differentiate him. So I decided he's going to get a Defender of Renee C skill, which is essentially near save, but when you trigger the saver skill, you get +4 to all stats and a Brave effect. So the idea behind the skill is that I really wanted to keep some of the Ephraim-esque abilities in the weapon, but he already has so many. He already has the auto follow-up, he already has the healing. So I decided to put the Brave effect in, and what makes this skill really unique is that you really need to trigger the save skill. So it really comes down to your positioning with Brave Ephraim to get the most out of him. If you put him in the wrong position and he gets attacked directly, not only is he not getting the stats, he's not getting the Brave effect, which is really the power behind this skill. While other axe armors get really cool effects as well, like you have the movement on Brave Edelgard, or the high damage reduction in her B skill, or like Gustav who has the damage reduction in his weapon, I decided for Ephraim it was made more sense for him to be super like powerful and aggressive, right? So if you attack into him, he's going to attack you back, and he's going to hit you back really, really hard, which is the cool part, right? And if you use something like Special Fighter, which is what he comes with, you can hit back with a very powerful special on that second hit. So you could run something like Ignis or some other 4-turn special and really destroy your opponent. And I felt like this skill suited Brave Ephraim very well because he is dressing up as his father. So by him protecting his friends, he becomes more powerful and destroys his enemies. Also, this will give him a unique niche as an axe armor, as he will be a more offensive near saver, while other axe armors tend to be more defensive. Let's talk about Brave Veronica. Brave Veronica is already one of the most powerful staff calves in the game. You could argue she is the most powerful, and I wouldn't completely disagree with you. And so it's kind of scary to give her more power. I think this is why the developers kind of gave her a tame refine. And so giving her a preference skill would make her even more powerful, which is a bit scary, but I figured, what the heck, you got to make her powerful. You got to make her stand that test of time. And so I gave her a preference B skill, Embla's Wrath. And what this does is essentially it's Wrathful Staff, so it calculates damage from staff like other weapons, but it also grants bonus to units attack equals total penalties on foe during combat. So that is the same effect as like Gunthra's Blizzard or Broadleaf Dagger, where you can get a ton of true damage based off penalties. And I think this works well with her weapon, which applies debuffs. So it's not going to work on the first attack, but on any attack afterwards, she can get like dance and then she can go in, and because she applied all those debuffs on everybody, her combat's going to be amazing against them. She's going to be able to just destroy enemies. And I think this kind of suits Veronica as a character because she is like very powerful and offensive. So just giving her more firepower so that she can continually be able to kill things throughout the history of FEH is a good idea in my opinion. I do think it would be quite annoying to deal with, and it would be very powerful, but I think it also kind of suits a Choose Your Legends character to have some powerful effects attached to their kit. Okay, let's talk about Choose Your Legends 3. While I would like to upgrade Sense Scale and Yune's Whispers, because I think both of them could use a bit more power. I don't know. Sense Scale is really strong, but I feel like the recoil damage is there for no reason. And honestly, Legendary Dimitri's Preference B skill is just better. So I think they could use a little bit of upgrade, and I think Yune's Whisper is in a pretty bad spot. We're going to actually dodge both of those, and instead we're just going to do Brave Eliwood and Brave Camilla. So let's start with Brave Eliwood, and I was struggling with this one because there are so many good Lance calves right now. You have like Legendary Ephraim, you have Brave Erica, you have like Zeke, everybody. There's so many. So I was trying to think of how to make him unique, what kind of effects I could give him, and I actually came to like a completely different conclusion than I originally had. I was planning to give him like a Preference B skill like most of these units, but instead I decided he should get a unique special. So I thought the Preference Special, Dawn of Destiny, which is like an homage to the very first chapter of Blazing Blade, and it is a 3 cooldown special, and the ability is at start of each turn grants special cooldown -3 to unit, doubles damage dealt, and disables non-special skills that reduce damage by X%. So essentially, this is kind of insane, to be honest. I could see people thinking this is just completely broken, and it might be, who knows. But essentially, this is a dead eye that pre-charges itself once per turn. So every turn, Brave Eliwood is going to have this super powerful special at the beginning of each turn. And I think this kind of suits him because he is in a unique position where his weapon gives like lots of stats and then speed-based damage reduction. And it also has like the half NFU, so you can't stop his attack. So you could run Windsweep in his B slot, and I think that's actually pretty legit. But it kind of like counteracts with his, his speed-based damage reduction. Like, why do you need speed-based damage reduction if you're not getting hit with Windsweep, right? And so with this, I kind of thought of like, okay, I want to give him the ability to hit really hard, to be able to just go in and destroy somebody once per turn. And to counterbalance that, I made sure he didn't have Canto, right? So you could technically put a Trace skill on him there if you want to and use it that way, but he does have Canto built into his kit, so you kind of have some risk with going in with such a powerful special and destroying something. And I thought that kind of counteracted it, kind of counterbalanced it a bit. Also, I just thought it was a good idea to get more specials into the game. I think that we're lacking like variety in specials, especially for like different types of units. So like we have Deadeye for archers and we have lethality for dagger units. We don't have anything for melee units, and I think that's okay, but I think it would be cool for some units to get unique specials, like for example Legendary Male Byleth, who has Sublime Heaven, which really puts in works for him and makes him really a powerful unit. So I thought that like maybe Brave Eliwood could kind of follow suit and have that same unique niche, but for a Lance Cav. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, Brave Camilla horrifies me. I was so scared when she got refined that she was going to get something super toxic. And luckily for me, I guess, it was pretty tame, it wasn't too bad. Definitely gave her some more firepower though. So when I thought about it, I was like, hey, why not go all out with Brave Camilla? Let's give her that really annoying, powerful abilities that will just let her kite and destroy people with her gravity preference weapon. So for her preference skill, I gave her Power of Nor, B skill preference weapon, enables Canto remaining +1, yes I know, calculates damage from staff like other weapons, and neutralizes foes' bonuses to speed and resistance from skills like Fortify, Rally, etc. during combat. So this is insane. I'm just gonna be honest, it's an insane preference skill, and it's probably too powerful, but I thought it would be cool to see Brave Camilla completely go off. So this essentially has Wrathful stuff built into it with low speed res, but without the minus stats of course. And also Canto remaining +1, which is quite unique for a 2-range unit. The only other unit I can really think of that has this is like Yuri, and he's completely broken, right? Now I didn't want to go completely sane and give her Canto 2, so I gave her Canto remaining +1, and that does act very different than far save skills usually, which only use the unit's base movement. This one will always allow her to go in, engage, hit, and then back up at least one space, right? Or move around one space. And this is extremely powerful because she has a gravity effect, so she can just barely stay out of range of all the enemies who are trying to kill her. And I think that would make her really cool and unique. It would let her be a more offensive healer and really allow people to use her in cool, unique ways. Like I could see this being used in Ether Raids and kind of just like kiting the Ether Raids defense team. So I don't know, I think it'd be cool. It would be very scary and annoying to deal with. I think it would give her a lot of firepower. That low speed res would be, oof, that would be scary against some tanks. But either way, I think Brave Camilla does deserve to be pretty unique and to allow her to really make full use of that gravity preference weapon. Okay, let's move on to Choose Your Legends 4. And Choose Your Legends 4 is quite different than all the other ones because they have not received their refines yet, at least at the time of this recording. So I do not know what kind of refines they will have on their weapon, so these skills might be terrible on them in the future. But for right now, this is what I think they need to really stand out as units. So let's start with Brave Claude. And Brave Claude has some major problems, and number one being Fatal Smoke. Fatal Smoke can just completely shut down his kit. He is a healing tank, and if you have Fatal Smoke on you, you can't heal. Unfortunately, I don't think there's really a way to solve this problem. You kind of just need to avoid Fatal Smoke, which sucks. I feel like if you start adding skills that counter meta skills, then I think it's a bad place to be. Like you don't want anti-Fatal Smoke in the game, because then it just kind of like stacks upon itself and it gets really messy. You don't want that. So what I decided for Brave Claude was I'm going to fix all of his other problems. So his next major problem is he's a flying tank. And while you can run like some different builds, you could do like a close counter build or something like that, I feel like at the moment it's better to use like a near save tank alongside Brave Claude and just let him take the ranged matchups. And one of the most common ranged matchups is going to be against bows, which are effective against him. So I think the first thing he really needed was IOT Shield just built into his skill so he can remove that weakness. Because what that does is it allows him to open up his seal slot to get more stats, which he's going to desperately need as a tank. You want as many stats as possible on your tank. So I think opening that seal slot is very imperative and something he definitely needs. Next, he definitely needs no follow-up. One of his biggest problems is getting his double denied. So with no follow-up, you can guarantee that you are not getting doubled as well as you are getting your double in, which is very important for Brave Claude so he can secure kills. The last major problem I feel like Brave Claude has is that he's extremely weak to guard. And this is because his weapon relies on his special proccing to heal. And so the last thing I think that his weapon really needs is an anti-guard effect. So we just gave him the full anti-guard effect so that people cannot inflict guard on him, and also they cannot accelerate their special like via heavy blade or flashing blade against him as well. And what this does is I think it makes Brave Claude just a much more solid unit and removes a lot of his major weaknesses, though it does leave him that Fatal Smoke weakness, so there is some counterplay against him. Our last unit is going to be Brave Lysithea, and she can be a very powerful unit, but I feel like she's just missing just a little bit of power she needs to really like stand out as a red mage. And I think that completely comes down to her weapon clauses. So essentially the problem with her weapon is that it requires her to be at less than 100% HP to get that double effect where she can hit twice in a row, like Lewin. But she has no real way to do that, right? You have to run like an Ardent Sacrifice build, which is very outdated. That's like year one kind of stuff. And so for her preference B skill, I gave her double Crest Magic. And what this does is essentially it gives her that Winter Burning effect. So at start of turn, if unit's HP equals 100%, deals 1 damage to unit and allies within 2 spaces of unit. This effect is extremely powerful. We've seen how much Winter Burning can do with this effect, how many strategies can be enabled just by dealing 1 damage to units. And so I think this will really give Brave Lysithea not only power, allowing her to enable her weapon and the doubles in it, but also allowing other strategies to occur around her. Next, we also have neutralizes foes bonuses to speed and res during combat. So we still have that speed res lull, which she does come with. We have that effect still tied in there. But more importantly, she also gets grant special cooldown charge +1 to unit per attack during combat. So she gets that special acceleration. And why this is so powerful on Brave Lysithea is because she's going to be hitting twice in a row with her weapon now. So what this means is you can essentially run a 2 cooldown special and have it go off guaranteed. You can come in with like a Moonbow or a Glimmer, hit once, and then on the second hit, get that Glimmer and just blow up the opponent before they even get a chance to respond. and I think this is just enough power to make Brave Lysithea really stand out as a red mage. Now when it comes to both these units, they still haven't gotten their refines, so of course these skills are a little bit more tame just because they can get powerful refines to go along with these skills and make them absolutely ridiculous. Okay, that's going to be my Theorycraft for today. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe, but also drop a comment telling me what you think. Do you think these skills are too powerful? Are they not powerful enough? Do you think I missed out on some special effects that these units really needed? Which skills do you enjoy the most? And lastly, do you think this is ever possible? Do you think that Choose Your Legend second place winners will ever get preference skills? I'm definitely interested to hear what you guys have to say, so drop a comment down below, and I'll catch everyone later with more Fire Emblem Heroes. See you then.